What decides where countless lives will be lost? Are battlefields predicted, unavoidable, or are they simply random collisions as armies wander across the countryside? Battles are often taught as dramatic moments of clash and destruction, but armies do not fight just anywhere, even though they may seem random at times. They fight where something important can be gained, protected, or destroyed. Terrain, logistics, political power, and movement corridors shape where armies collide long before the first shot is fired. If we understand what both sides are trying to protect or seize, battlefield locations usually begin to make sense. Campaigns are not shaped by coincidence, they are shaped by geography, objectives, and the limitations of movement and supply. The first major reason armies fight where they do is logistics. Armies live or die on supply. Food, ammunition, fuel, medicine, and replacements must constantly move from rear areas to front. This means rail hubs, ports, depots, river crossings, and supply roads become magnets for conflict. Commanders often maneuver not simply to destroy enemy armies directly, but to sever the lifelines that keep those armies functioning. Sometimes destroying the enemy's ability to sustain a campaign is more effective than defeating them in open battle. Imagine an enemy force advancing along two roads that both rely on the same supply junction. You can defend strong terrain and slow the advance, or you can strike the supply node and potentially collapse the entire defensive. This is a recurring military dilemma. Do you attack the enemy where they are strongest, or do you neutralize the system that keeps them alive? Sometimes commanders go even further. Rather than merely contesting supply, they destroy it entirely. Scorched earth tactics, burned depots, demolished railways, and poisoned wells. If an army cannot sustain itself, it cannot continue the campaign. Not all battles are fought over military value alone. Some locations matter because of what they represent. Capitals, royal seats, sacred cities, and regime centers can become decisive objectives because they embody political authority and legitimacy. Even if armies remain in the field, the collapse of political control can end organized resistance. Jerusalem during the Crusades became the focal point of repeated campaigns because of its religious and political significance to multiple faiths. Berlin in 1945 during World War II marked the collapse of the German state regardless of the remaining field armies. And Kiev in 2022 demonstrated how modern campaigns may aim not to simply destroy armies, but to decapitate governments and force political collapse. Now imagine your enemy retreats, exposing their capital. You can pursue their army and attempt to destroy it, or you can seize political authority and potentially end the war immediately. Commanders constantly balance military destruction against political collapse. Sometimes the fastest path to victory is not eliminating the enemy army, it is destroying the enemy's ability to continue governing. The next reason armies fight where they do is terrain. Some terrain physically channels movement. Other terrain dominates movement through observation, fire, and defense. High ground, ridgelines, bridges, mountain passes, and fortified positions shape how armies can operate around them. These locations attract battle because controlling them often means controlling the surrounding battlefield. At Vimy Ridge in 1917 during World War I, whoever held the heights overlooked the entire defensive system below. At Gettysburg, Little Round Top anchored the Union left flank. Its loss could have rolled up the entire line. At Iwo Jima, elevated volcanic terrain dominated observation and fire across the island. Control of the heights shaped the entire campaign. Imagine you are holding a dominating terrain. It gives you defensive advantage, observation, and fields of fire. But holding it also fixes your army in place. Do you remain on the high ground and risk losing mobility, or abandon it to preserve maneuver while giving the enemy superior control of the battlefield. Terrain protects armies, but it can also trap them. Armies rarely move in straight lines across open wilderness. They move along roads, railways, valleys, and movement corridors. Where these routes converge, armies often converge. These locations become natural collision points where contact becomes nearly unavoidable if both sides intend to continue their campaigns. Chattanooga became decisive during the American Civil War because it linked critical rail systems and controlled movement into the Deep South. Gettysburg itself was not initially chosen for symbolic reasons. It was a convergence point for major roads. Both armies moved toward the area independently because the road network drew them there. Waterloo became critical because Napoleon needed to prevent Allied armies from linking together. The crossroads mattered because movement mattered. Now imagine your enemy controls the road networks ahead of you. Your army must either fight, detour into worse terrain, or abandon the campaign entirely. Sometimes battles happen not because commanders want them, they happen because movement options disappear. The final major category is waterways and amphibious access. Rivers and oceans are the ultimate supply highways. They allow rapid movement of troops, equipment, and sustainment on a scale roads often cannot match. Because of this, ports, straits, harbors, river mouths, and islands become strategically decisive. At Salamis in 480 BC, narrow waterways neutralized Persian naval superiority and protected Greece from invasion. During the Pacific island hopping campaign of World War II, islands became stepping stones. Each captured island expanded air and naval reach deeper into the Pacific. Geography itself became the campaign. Control of waterways determines where armies can land, where they can be reinforced, and how long they can sustain operations. Open field battles are actually relatively rare. Commanders generally avoid battle unless maneuver is blocked or objectives demand it. Most campaigns are contests of movement, supply, positioning, and pressure. When armies finally fight, it is usually because both sides have been drawn toward the same decisive ground. Some battles appear accidentally. Gettysburg began with a cavalry contact. Waterloo developed as Napoleon searched for enemy forces. But armies do not randomly wander into each other. They collide where roads converge, where rivers must be crossed, where supply lines overlap, and where objectives become impossible to ignore. The timing may involve chance, the location almost never does. This matters beyond history. It also matters in tabletop gaming and military analysis. Good scenarios should reflect real operational problems. Objectives should represent supply hubs, political centers, bridges, crossings, or moving corridors, not simply enemy casualties on an open map. Terrain should force difficult decisions. Victory conditions should reflect what commanders are actually trying to achieve. When scenarios reflect real-world value, players begin making real-world choices, and that just makes the entire experience more satisfying. Battles happen where value and movement intersect. Location reveals what both sides are trying to protect, sustain, or seize. Understanding terrain, logistics, politics, and movement explains not only where battles happen, but why commanders make the decisions they do. But smart commanders do not simply accept where battles occur. They shape when and where those collisions happen. Or they avoid battle entirely until the conditions favor them. Strategy is not just choosing where to fight, it is deciding when the fight is worth the cost. So when you build your next tabletop scenario, study your next campaign, or analyze your next historical battle, ask yourself, what makes this ground valuable? What are both sides trying to protect? And is the price of victory worth what must be paid to achieve it? This has been Keith's Orders of Battle, understanding war through the lens of tabletop.